So next up, we're going to install Pylint Visual Studio Code extension. Now, the Pylint Visual Code extension is a tool that integrates the Pylint linter directly into Visual Studio Code environment. Now, Pylint is a widely used static code analysis tool for Python that's going to check our code against a set of coding standards and conventions. Now, Pylint being a static code analysis tool can sometimes be perceived as challenging for new developers due to its strict enforcement of code standards and the detailed nature of its feedback. To help overcome some of these problems and to make Pylint more approachable, in addition to installing, I want to give you some additional information which is going to help you start using Pylint. And I think one of the strategies for Pylint, using Pylint, is to introduce Pylint gradually. Start with a basic configuration and only use or enable a subset of the checks that it can provide. And then as we become more comfortable, additional checks can then be gradually introduced. Right, so let's get started utilizing Pylint by going over to the extensions. Let's type in Pylint. Let's get it installed. So there's 1.2 million downloads, very popular extension. We're looking for the Microsoft tick. Let's go ahead and install. Right, so similar to Black, we installed previously, there are some additional guidelines on how to use and configure. Now it's going to be up to you regarding how you configure Pylint, whether you do that at a project level, like we have been demonstrating previously with Black, or whether you do that at a more global level. Now I'm going to set this at a project level. So for example, what's going to happen here, if we have a look at some code, and you can start to see some red underlines and some blue underlines here. So that's Pylint in action. So we can see here that Pylint is now telling us that there is a missing class docstring. So here we're told that there is a missing class docstring, which is referring to a docstring that we ought to include underneath. So let's go ahead and do that. This is a category class. Not something we want to type in necessarily, but I just wanted to add something there just to show you the fact that once we add a docstring to our class, you can see that that error now is removed. It disappears. So that's an example of using Pylint. It's looking for analyzing our code and looking for where we are not maybe following best practices or where we can improve the quality of our code. So I introduced the idea of a gradual introduction. So where potentially you want to avoid having to see these different errors or warnings, we simply need to identify the number of the error or warning, C0115, and then we can go over to our settings at a global level or a project level, and we can go ahead and define the fact we want to disable that. So in this case, we have error C0115. So let's go ahead and do that, C0115. And we should now be able to go back to our code, and you can see that that error has now been removed from our code base. If you would like to replicate this code error, then just copy out the first 9 lines of code here and give it a go yourself. Now, of course, it's okay for me to say, let's introduce yourself gradually into utilizing Pylint. But of course, unless you know what you are disabling, you could end up disabling something that is probably important to understand. So this is where mentorship is important, particularly if you're in the workplace. But of course, throughout our courses, we will take you through step by step, providing you rationale and reasoning for maybe disabling and or else including solving problems that have been identified by Pylint. Hopefully at this point, you're not getting too bogged down with the detail. What's important is that you have installed Pylint within Visual Studio Code. More details and information will be provided within the course.